The year 1994 witnessed an incomprehensible horror in the heart of Africa. Rwanda, a country known for its breathtaking landscapes and vibrant culture, was plunged into darkness. For 100 days, the small nation of Rwanda became a stage for unimaginable brutality. The serene villages and lush countryside turned into scenes of chaos and bloodshed. It was the Rwandan Genocide, a systematic extermination of the Tutsi minority by the Hutu majority. The seeds of ethnic tension sown over decades erupted into a violent storm. Nearly 1 million lives were extinguished brutally and efficiently in a frenzy of hatred. Mass graves became a grim testament to the scale of the atrocity. The world watched in stunned silence as neighbor turned on neighbor, friend on friend. Families were torn apart and communities were shattered. The Rwandan genocide stained the conscience of humanity, leaving an indelible mark on history. Memorials and monuments now stand as somber reminders of the lives lost. It is a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked hatred and indifference. The speeches and ceremonies held in remembrance echo the cries for justice and peace. This essay delves into the abyss of this dark chapter. We will uncover the layers of pain and suffering that marked this period. We will explore the historical roots of the conflict, tracing back to the colonial era and the seeds of division that were planted. The events that ignited the genocide, including the political machinations and propaganda that fueled the flames of hatred, and the horrific unfolding of the massacre. The streets of Rwanda became rivers of blood, and the air was thick with fear and despair. Through personal stories, we will bear witness to the human cost of this tragedy. Survivors' tales of loss and resilience offer a poignant glimpse into the impact of the genocide. We will examine the international community's role, scrutinizing the failures and the moments of intervention that came too late, and the subsequent efforts for justice and reconciliation. The trials and reconciliation efforts are steps towards healing a nation scarred by violence. Finally, we will reflect on the lessons learned, understanding the importance of vigilance and education in preventing future atrocities, and the importance of remembering, not just for Rwanda's sake, but for humanity's. Educational programs and memorials serve as beacons of hope and reminders of our shared responsibility. The Rwandan genocide is not just a historical event, it is a stark warning. It calls us to action to ensure that such darkness never descends upon any nation again. It reminds us of our collective responsibility to confront hatred, prevent atrocities, and protect the vulnerable. Human rights campaigns and peacekeeping efforts are crucial in this ongoing battle. It compels us to remember, to learn, and to act to ensure that such horrors are never repeated. The legacy of the Rwandan genocide is a call to humanity to uphold the values of peace, justice, and compassion.
To understand the Rwandan genocide, one must delve into the historical tensions between the Hutu and Tutsi ethnic groups. These groups, though sharing the same language and cultural practices, were divided by colonial classifications. Belgian colonial rule, beginning in the early 20th century, exacerbated these divisions. The Belgians, seeking to solidify their control, implemented a system of racial classification. They favored the Tutsis, perceiving them as superior due to their physical attributes and economic standing. Tutsis were given preferential treatment in education, government positions, and access to resources. This created resentment among the Hutu majority, who felt marginalized and oppressed. Over time, this manufactured division solidified into a rigid social hierarchy. The Hutu, fueled by resentment and manipulated by political opportunists, began to view the Tutsis as their oppressors. The seeds of hatred sown by the colonizers took root in Rwandan soil, setting the stage for future conflict. The departure of the Belgians in 1962 did little to heal the wounds of division. If anything, it created a power vacuum that was quickly filled by ethnic tensions. The Hutu, now in control of the government, perpetuated the discrimination against the Tutsis. Decades of resentment and violence culminated in the horrific events of 1994.
The Rwandan genocide was not a spontaneous eruption of violence, it was a meticulously planned campaign of extermination. However, the spark that ignited this powder keg came on the evening of April 6, 1994. The plane carrying Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana, a Hutu, was shot down near Kigali Airport. The circumstances surrounding the crash remain shrouded in mystery. with accusations flying between the Hutu extremists and the Rwandan Patriotic Front, a Tutsi-led rebel group. Regardless of who was responsible, the assassination of President Habyarimana served as the catalyst for the genocide. Within hours of the crash, extremist Hutu leaders seized control of the government. They blamed the Tutsis for the assassination, using it as a pretext to unleash a wave of violence against the Tutsi population. Radio stations controlled by Hutu extremists began broadcasting inflammatory messages, inciting hatred and urging Hutus to exterminate their Tutsi neighbors. The assassination of President Habyarimana was the match that lit the fuse, igniting decades of simmering ethnic tensions into a conflagration of unimaginable brutality. What followed was a carefully orchestrated campaign of mass murder, designed to wipe out the Tutsi population from the face of Rwanda. Section 4. 100 Days of Terror. The Rwandan Genocide unfolds. This chapter delves into one of the darkest periods in human history, a time when humanity seemed to lose its way entirely. Following the assassination of President Habyarimana, the meticulously planned genocide swung into action with terrifying efficiency. The death of the president was the spark that ignited a premeditated and systematic campaign of mass murder. Hutu militias armed with machetes, clubs, and guns set upon their Tutsi neighbors with ruthless abandon. These militias, often composed of ordinary citizens, were driven by a deadly mix of propaganda and deep-seated ethnic hatred. Roadblocks were erected across the country, and Tutsis were systematically identified and slaughtered. These roadblocks became death traps where identity cards were checked, and those identified as Tutsi were brutally killed on the spot. The Rwandan government, now controlled by Hutu extremists, played a central role in the genocide. Government officials not only condoned but actively participated in the planning and execution of the mass killings. Radio stations, transformed into instruments of hate, broadcasted lists of Tutsis to be targeted, inciting ordinary citizens to participate in the killings. These broadcasts were relentless, urging neighbors to turn against neighbors in a frenzy of violence. Hutu neighbors turned on Tutsis they had lived alongside for years, driven by a toxic mix of fear, propaganda, and ingrained hatred. Communities that once lived in relative harmony were torn apart by the violence. The methods used were shocking in their brutality. Machetes, clubs, and other crude weapons were employed to inflict maximum pain and suffering. Men, women, and children were hacked to death with machetes, bludgeoned with clubs, or shot at close range. The scale of the violence was staggering, with entire families wiped out in moments of sheer horror. Rape was used as a weapon of war, and countless women and girls suffered unimaginable horrors. Sexual violence was rampant, leaving deep physical and psychological scars on the survivors. The world watched in horror as images of the carnage emerged from Rwanda, but the international community remained largely silent, paralyzed by inaction. Despite the clear evidence of genocide, global powers failed to intervene effectively. The genocide raged for 100 days, a period of unimaginable suffering and depravity. During this time, the country was plunged into chaos, and the social fabric of Rwanda was torn apart. By the time the RPF, led by Paul Kagame, gained control of the country in July 1994, nearly 1 million people lay dead, victims of a hatred that had consumed the nation. The RPF's advance brought an end to the genocide, but the damage was already done. The scars of this genocide would forever mark the soul of Rwanda. The nation has since embarked on a long journey of healing and reconciliation, but the memories of those 100 days remain etched in the collective consciousness of its people.
Section 5. Voices from the Abyss. Personal stories of loss and survival. The Rwandan genocide was not just a historical event, it was a human tragedy of unimaginable proportions. Over the course of approximately 100 days in 1994, an estimated 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus were brutally murdered. This was not just a conflict, it was a systematic attempt to annihilate an entire ethnic group. To truly understand the depths of this horror, one must listen to the voices of those who lived through it, the survivors who bear witness to the unimaginable. Their stories are not just accounts of survival, but also of loss, pain, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. One such survivor, Immaculée Ilibagiza, a young Tutsi woman, spent 91 days hiding in a cramped bathroom with 7 other women while the genocide raged outside. The bathroom, no larger than 3 feet by 4 feet, became their sanctuary and prison. She listened in terror as her family and friends were murdered, the sound of their screams forever etched in her memory. The fear and helplessness she felt during those days are beyond what most of us can comprehend. Immaculée's story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable evil. Despite the horrors she witnessed, she emerged with a message of forgiveness and hope, dedicating her life to promoting peace and reconciliation. Another survivor, Eric Murangwa Eugene, a Tutsi and a goalkeeper for the Rwandan national football team, found refuge with his teammate, a Hutu, who risked his own life to protect him. This act of bravery and solidarity is a powerful reminder of the potential for humanity, even in the darkest times. Eric's story highlights the rare acts of courage and compassion that shone through the darkness, reminding us that even in the face of unimaginable hatred, humanity can endure. His experience underscores the importance of standing up against injustice and protecting one another, regardless of ethnic or social divides. These personal stories, filled with both profound loss and incredible resilience, provide a glimpse into the human cost of the Rwandan genocide. They are a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the strength of the human spirit. They remind us that behind the staggering statistics were individuals, mothers, fathers, children, friends, whose lives were brutally cut short or irrevocably altered. Each number represents a person with dreams, hopes, and a future that was stolen from them. Their stories serve as a powerful reminder of the need for empathy, understanding, and a commitment to prevent such atrocities from ever happening again. By listening to and sharing these stories, we honor the memory of those lost and strengthen our resolve to build a more compassionate and just world.